Suppose it folds to the button and the button opens to 2.5 big blinds. How often do the blinds need to defend combined to prevent the button from being able to open any 2 cards profitably if they only defend by 3-betting? So think about that for a moment. 2.5 big blind open, that's pretty common button opening size in most online games. How often do the blinds need to defend if they only defend by 3-betting? Well, when the blinds fold, the button wins 1.5 big blinds. When the blinds 3-bet, he loses 2.5 big blinds. And note, we are trying to make the button indifferent to opening or folding the worst hand in his theoretically correct opening range. We thus only care that he loses money or breaks even with the worst hand in his range, which will of course fold to a 3-bet. Now this is a concept that a lot of people tend to get confused on. When you're trying to make your opponent indifferent between 2 lines, you're usually only focused on making him indifferent to a single hand in his range. So for example, here we're just trying to make the opponent indifferent to whether or not he opens the worst hand in his theoretically correct button opening range. We're never going to be able to make our opponent indifferent to opening a hand like Ace-10 or Ace-Jack or even a hand like Jack-10. Those are all too strong of hands, so that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on making him indifferent to opening with his worst hand. So here, if he opens with his worst hand and he does get 3-bet, he's going to say to himself, well, that's unfortunate. I just got 3-bet when I opened the button, and I have the worst hand I can possibly have. So he's, of course, always going to fold because he's at the very bottom of his range. He has the weakest possible hand. So that's what we're focused on here. We're not making him indifferent with his entire range, only the worst hand in his range. The math will thus be 1.5 times 1 minus x minus 2.5 times x equals 0, where x is the 3-betting frequency from both of the blinds combined. Solving for x shows 1.5 divided by 4 equals 0.375, or 37.5%. So here, when we set up the equation, we know that when the button gets folds, he wins 1.5 big blinds. For 3-betting x fraction of the time or at x frequency, then he's going to win 1.5 times 1 minus x, because that's all the times that we didn't 3-bet. Likewise, when we do 3-bet, he'll lose 2.5 big blinds, because that was his opening size, times x, which is the combined 3-bet frequency. If this math is something you're very uncomfortable with, like if you don't understand how to set up basic equations like this or use basic pot-odd poker math, write that down in the forums and just let people know, and I'm sure you'll get directed to another video. This is not going to be a video that teaches you how to do basic poker math. There's already a lot of books and poker videos about that out there. So if you don't know how to do this, I'm sure we can point you in the right direction. While some people prefer to simply go risk divided by risk plus reward, setting up the algebraic equation to make sure we don't make a mistake and will train us to solve tougher problems later. So I'm a huge advocate of using the algebraic equations to figure out the answer, and I don't really tend to memorize the rules other people use because the rules tend to get very confusing, especially when you're in different spots. So just try setting up the algebraic equations, especially if this is new to you. So what we just did was find our first parameter. Da-na-na-na. What we've just done is create a parameter or a guideline which tells us what we must do against other strong opponents. While we didn't solve for exactly what to do against a button open, we now know the blinds must defend at least 37% combined to prevent the button from profitably opening 100% of his range. This isn't really something that's debatable. You can't show me the ranges that you're using from the blinds against a button open. Show me 2 really tight ranges against a 2.5 big blind open and say, no, I think these ranges are pretty much optimal. They might be good exploitatively if the button's a complete and total nit, but you know someone's got to be doing something really, really, really wrong if the blinds aren't defending at least 37.5% of the time combined. This is especially true because here we're focusing only on 3-bets, where the button doesn't even get to see a flop when he opens and we defend. If we're calling, then we're going to have to defend a whole lot more than 37.5% of the time combined. So understand how significant this is. It's a huge deal. Now, the exception to this math would be if the opponent could open any 2 cards on the button. Then that wouldn't tell us we need to defend that aggressively because now, maybe the button should be able to open any 2 cards profitably. So when we set that equation up to equal 0, that might not have been right because all hands maybe should have been profitable. But if you apply a little bit of 3-bet math, it will show you just how silly it would be if the button opened 100% of his range against 2 players. both the players and the blinds can 3-bet really aggressively, and the button ends up having to defend an incredibly wide range against 3-bets, which, even though you can't prove that's not correct because you cannot assign an exact value to position, you're going to be pretty comfortable to say, okay, there's no way the button should be able to open any 2 cards profitably.